Okay, just for a second, think about your daily routine. Did it kick off with a cup of coffee? Maybe you're planning on a glass of wine later tonight. You see, we're surrounded by these three chemicals: caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. And they're so normal, we kind of forget they're drugs. But they are, and they're powerful ones that totally shape our lives and even our whole society.
I mean, have you ever really paused and thought about what's going on inside your own head with that first sip of espresso or that happy hour pint? There's this incredibly complex biochemical dance happening in your brain, and that's exactly what we're going to get into.
Yep, that's our mission today. We're going to unpack the science behind the buzz, but also, and maybe more importantly, the social side of it. Why do these three substances get a free pass when so many others don't?
All right, so first up, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How do these little molecules actually work? How do they pull the levers in our brain to make us feel the way they do? It all comes down to chemistry.
Okay, so caffeine, it's basically a master imposter. See, your brain has this chemical called adenosine, and its job is to make you feel tired. Well, caffeine's molecular shape looks almost exactly like adenosine, so it sneaks in, sits in adenosine's parking spot, and blocks it from doing its job. It's like cutting the brake lines on your brain's sleepiness system, and boom, you feel alert, energized, and ready to go.
Now, we've got to talk about the main character in this whole story: dopamine. This is your brain's feel-good chemical. It's the reward you get for doing things your brain thinks are good for survival, like eating delicious food. It's your brain's way of screaming, "Yes, that was awesome! Do it again!"
And nicotine? Well, nicotine is a hijacker. It doesn't wait for a natural reward. It gets to your brain, super fast, by the way, and just pulls the emergency lever for a massive dopamine flood. This gives you a really powerful, but really short hit of pleasure. Your brain learns that association instantly, which is why it creates such a powerful craving, and why the addiction is so fast-acting.
Then you've got alcohol, which plays a completely different game. Caffeine and nicotine are stimulants. They press the gas pedal. Alcohol is a depressant. It hits the brakes. It basically supercharges the brain's chill-out signals, slowing everything down. And that's where you get that relaxed, less anxious feeling, but also, the lack of coordination.
So that's the immediate buzz, right? The fun part. But what about the long game? Every single one of these substances has a flip side, another edge to the sword, and we've got to look at the long-term price tag.
It's a really important question, isn't it? Especially when we talk about alcohol. That temporary good feeling, that social ease, well, over time, it can rack up a pretty serious bill when it comes to your health.
And look, there's no way to sugarcoat this. Chronic, heavy alcohol consumption is incredibly destructive. We're talking about serious liver damage, think cirrhosis, a much higher risk for heart disease, certain cancers, and it can even cause permanent damage to your brain. It really affects almost every single system in the body. Now with nicotine, the biggest long-term cost is, arguably, the addiction itself. I mean, it is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. It's just so brutally effective at rewiring your brain's reward system that trying to break free is a monumental struggle for millions of people.
And what about our beloved coffee? Don't worry, its long-term risks are nowhere near as severe. But let's be real, it's not totally harmless. If you drink it every day, you build a dependency. And anyone who's tried to skip their morning cup knows about the withdrawal, the headaches, the fog. Plus, it can really mess with your sleep, and poor sleep comes with its own long list of problems.
So, this brings us to the biggest question of all. If all three of these things have clear risks, from addiction to disease, why on earth are they legal? Why are they just normal? This is where we move beyond science and into culture. When you look at it, a drug's legal status often has way less to do with how dangerous it is and way more to do with its history and how we've decided to treat it as a society. It's our culture, not a lab report, that draws that fuzzy line between a morning ritual, a social lubricant, and an illegal substance. Yeah, this is the real puzzle, right? We literally build cafes for one, dedicate entire vineyards to another, and for a long time, we even designed buildings around the third. So why have these three been given the all-access pass? Well, it really boils down to three big things. First, history. They've been around forever, for centuries, long before we had any clue how they worked. Second, money. Let's be honest, there are massive global industries built on selling this stuff. And finally, cultural integration. They are just completely woven into our rituals, celebrations, business meetings, first dates, you name it. They're part of the deal. And this is where we'll leave it, with a really interesting thought. Our science is getting better and better, we understand the brain more every day, and our cultural attitudes are always shifting. The lines we've drawn in the sand are already starting to get a little blurry. So,
It makes you wonder, what's next? Which drug or substance will be the next one to cross the line into social acceptance? Something to think about.